between.
Hey guys, this is Tyler
And Jake.
from you know where. And we're doing yet another creepypasta. This one isn't about a video game though. So turn the sound on your phone down.
It is.
Okay,
It is off.
Okay, so like last time, we'll just switch off paragraphs.
This is called The White Face
In the Window. Because that's pretty scary.
And
okay, so I'll start.
yeah.
Last winter, I was walking through a park near my apartment when I came across 5 young boys attempting to smash an object with a hammer. Granted, Chicago children are probably more violent than most, but I am not used to seeing such things in my particular neighborhood. I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't be used to seeing 5 kids smash something with a hammer in my neighborhood, but whatever. I jogged over to them mostly out of curiosity, but also to make sure they weren't torturing some poor squirrel or pigeon or something. If I had known the sort of thing I was about to come in contact with, I would have probably went home and bolted the door.
One of the boys was clutching some sort of dark wooden board covered with black paint and holding it at arm's length with his face turned away and his eyes closed. A second boy, I remember one of his friends calling him either Peter or Paul, was aggressively prying the hammer out of the hands of the boy who had been swinging at the wooden board moments earlier, while the other 2 kids watched without saying a word. In spite of all the hammering and arguing, the surface of the board looked perfectly smooth and intact from the angle which I was approaching. I put on my toughest adult voice and got the kids to quit yelling and fighting over the hammer, just long enough to ask them what in the hell they were trying to do.
The boy holding the hammer, Peter or Paul, let's call him P-Tall. It doesn't actually say that. I had it in my own flair. Looked me straight in the face and said, "We're going to break the devil into 6 pieces and bury him in the woods." I was stunned, but also amused. I figured he had seen something like this on television and sort of laughed it off as I asked, "So you kids think this plank is the devil?"
P-Tall was clearly not pleased by this question and said something along the lines of, "Are you stupid or what? This thing ain't a plank." As I took my first look at the wooden board up close, I was surprised to see that the entire surface had not been painted with black paint as I had first thought. It was actually hand-painted to the point that it was clearly covered with a language I wasn't familiar with. Nearly covered with a language I wasn't familiar with. It looked vaguely Asian or Middle Eastern. It was entirely alien to me aside from the upper left and right corners, which displayed very detailed paintings of the sun and the moon. In the center of both the sun and the moon were unnerving faces with blank expressions. As I thought about this last detail, it became clear to me that this board was some sort of antique, handmade Ouija.
That's how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Pete Hall explained to me that his grandfather owned an antique store and was on his deathbed. He had requested that the boy's mother take this board from his store safe and break it into 6 pieces and dispose of it immediately, burying each piece in the woods not less than a mile apart from each other. He would not say why this had to be done, but continuously referred to the board as that wooden devil. When the boy's mother had refused, thinking it ludicrous as any rational person would, the grandfather enlisted the boy and his friends, given them the store key, and told them the safe combination. I remember, this creepypasta has a lot of grammar and spelling errors, so just know that. It says, I remember a kid telling me he was disappointed. He had always thought the safe held his grandfather's stash of ancient pirate treasure, because when we were little kids, that's what we all thought.
Upon grabbing the wooden board from the safe, however, the boys had run into 2 problems. The boys had run into 2 problems. Firstly, the board was hard as stone, and the best way to break the thing was turning into a point of argument now that the hammer had failed. The second issue was that the woods in Chicago are scarce, and woods large enough for burying things miles apart from each other are even scarcer. Realizing it was most likely not the best idea to get in the way of a group of kids' family issues when a hammer and wooden slab were involved, I figured my best option was to break the thing myself to make sure the kids didn't get themselves hurt. Then I'd be on my way.
This proved to be extremely difficult. I remember thinking that the board had to be reinforced with a steel plate or something. I was beating on the thing with a hammer for the 100th time, and I remember that I had a hacksaw I had bought to remove a broken tree limb 2 years earlier, and I had never touched it since. I told the kids to sit tight and jogged down the block to my apartment. By the time I got back, it was snowing, and the boys were picking up snow and throwing it at each other in clumps rather than snowballs. It was an unusually mild winter for us last year, and I think this may have been the beginning of the only snowstorm we had all year, if I remember correctly. The 5 of them continued to play with the snow as I hacked into the board with my saw.
It took an unusually long time, but it worked. When the first piece snapped off, I picked it up and saw that the grain where it had been was cut unlike anything I had ever seen before, spiraling in a very distinct pattern that I can still picture in my head. The unstained wood was a deep reddish brown. When the board was in 6 pieces, P-Tall grabbed the corner with the picture of the sun. Then he and one of his friends ran a short distance into the wooded area on the edge of the park and buried it about a foot down. As this was going on, the other boys explained to me that they were planning on spending the day riding the elevated train and taking the pieces to the various wooded areas they had come up with. They just needed one more piece to bury the 6th piece. Place to bury the 6th piece, and hadn't come up with anything yet. As it happened to be on a Sunday, if I recall, I offered to do it on the way to work the next day, and they agreed that it was a good plan. As the 5 of them walked away toward the north, I saw them enter a station for the Blue Line train, and I never saw them again.
Later that night, as the snowstorm started to get really bad, I remember thinking that I hoped I hadn't made a mistake by letting them go off on their own. The strange adult hanging around with 5 neighborhood kids tends to give people the wrong idea, regardless of whether he's looking out for their safety. I hope they had gotten their task finished before the storm had really hit. Hopefully I'll have a picture up around here. I don't know what other picture I'll have. It might just be this one. But anyway, the corner of the board I had wound up with was the corner with the painting of the moon with the blank expression. Well, it doesn't really look like a blank expression, but what do you think? Right here.
I mean, it kind of looks like it's frowning, but that's about it.
Yeah,
it doesn't really look blank.
But yeah, I had really planned to bury it. I swear I did. But we all wound up snowed in the following morning, and it ended up in the drawer of an end table. I don't know if you've ever been snowed in during Chicago winter, but when this happens, they tend to send out these huge monolithic snow plows that push all the snow into mountains on top of all the parked cars, none of which will be capable of moving an inch for at least 2 days.
The day was rather uneventful, but as nightfall approached, I was taken by the eerie notion that someone was watching me through my living room window.
Ooh.
I kept glancing toward it, expecting me seeing someone peering in at me peering in at me. Sorry, this is a lot of grammatical errors. Despite the fact that I live on the 3rd floor and my living room window faces the street, after a while I shook off the notion, and I believe I went to sleep around 11.
Around 1 a.m. I was awoken by what sounded like a mechanical device humming loudly and assumed it to be my heater. Like if you can hear in the background, sorry about that, possibly being overworked due to the snowstorm. I stood up and put my ear next to the vent, but the sound wasn't coming from there. I walked into the living room to check the settings on my thermostat, and immediately every hair on my body stood at full attention. The sound was coming from the direction of my living room window. As I turned to look, I caught the ghastly image of a solid white face. Oh, my computer's dying. With a wide mouth and dark eye sockets on the other side of the glass. I quickly turned on a light, and the face disappeared. Mechanical droning noise seemed to recede. Here is a sound bite of the noise. Yeah, that was definitely real with the freaking glass breaking.
Had it all been my imagination, I wondered. When I was younger, I once had an episode of sleep paralysis where I witnessed a tree devouring my neighbor's dog through a bedroom window, but when I came out of it, the tree was back to normal and the dog was perfectly fine. Had this been something similar? Nevertheless, I hardly slept the rest of the night. I kept thinking that I was hearing that deep mechanical drone somewhere in the distance.
But the next night I regained my wits and fell asleep in my bed sometime around midnight. I woke once again, terrified. It sounded the same mechanical drone as the previous night, but this time much louder. As I sat up in bed, I saw the ghastly white face with sunken eyes on the other side of the window, near the foot of my bed, no more than 3 feet from where I lay sleeping. It had no neck, arms, torso, nothing. It just seemed to float there above the streetlights below, emanating that horrible humming sound. I instinctively grabbed the drapes and pulled them closed, but the sound continued. Remembering what had happened the night before, I ran to the lights and flipped the switch. The noise slowly faded, but I was too afraid to open the drapes for the rest of the night.
The next morning, I was still unable to get to work due to my car being frozen beneath a 7-foot pile of ice.
Chicago.
But I absolutely had to get out of that apartment. I thought that if the face was going to come back, that I would have to be ready for it somehow. I went to a sporting goods store in the neighborhood and purchased a box of ammo for the 22 range pistol, 22 millimeter range pistol.
From here, you can facepalm.
Yeah. I hadn't used in years. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. I also bought some caffeine tablets and a bag of coffee. Before nightfall, I set up camp in my living room with the pistol and a coffee pot, took one of the caffeine tablets, and rigged up a portable audio recorder that I sometimes use for work. I don't own a camera, and my cell phone's video function had not been working for months.
Which I don't understand how they got a picture, but you know, whatever.
So the best I could do was attempt to snap some photos in the dark with the cell if the face appeared again.
It showed itself around 3 in the morning. I was beginning to crash from all the caffeine when I began to hear the droning sound approaching from the distance. I readied my gun in one hand and my cell phone in the other, but the face didn't appear at the window. I began to wonder if perhaps the face was outside my bedroom window. As I snuck into the dark toward the door, the sounds seemed to get louder. However, as I entered the room, the door slammed and locked behind me, and I heard glass shattering in the living room. Suddenly, the apartment was filled with noises of things being smashed, thrown, and torn to pieces. The apartment was filled... The droning noise was deafeningly loud. You know, it made you deaf. And I covered one ear and turned my head away as I clawed at the doorknob with my other hand. But it simply would not open. It was as if the lock had been welded shut. After about 30 seconds of this, I raised my foot and smashed the door open with 2 kicks. Immediately, the crashing in the living room stopped, but the room itself had been completely torn to pieces. As I looked up above the debris at the shattered window, I saw the face one last time staring at me from the other side of my demolished Venetian blinds. It opened its mouth, exposing a wide, dark cavern, like the likes of which I hope to never see again. Horrible sound got louder and louder as I snapped a single photograph with my camera and the flash went off. Here's a picture of that. Pretty creepy.
Yep. Then in an instant, the face was gone. All I have to prove my story is a single blurry photograph and the audio taken by my portable recorder in those last few minutes. But the thing about it that disturbed me the most is the corner of the wooden board with the painting of the moon was sitting atop the debris in the exact center of the room, and the face had been altered to that the expression was identical to what I had seen in the window pane with the wide, gaping, cavernous mouth. I buried it in the woods the following morning. Credit to Nick Ledesma.
Okay, Ledesma. Okay, so it's rated 8.9 out of 10. I have to admit, that freaked me out. Like, Jake and I are sitting in my basement right now, reading this, and I'm starting to get the willies. So yeah, if you want to hear that sound again, Jake and I are going to cover our ears, but... Okay, that's enough of that. So, yeah, that's pretty freaky. That
pretty
face
scary now.
Just creeps me out. If that happened to me, I would die.
I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'd just be like,
I'd piss myself.
Mom, there's a face looking at me through my bedroom window.
I mean, if you believe in ghosts, then you'd believe in this. Jake and I do. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jake does, I do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, yeah, so... You gotta be one of those people. And if you don't, I'm not saying you're crazy or anything, because, I mean, I'm probably crazy for believing in them. But, yeah, it's all about, like, if you believe in ghosts, then, you know, you would be more quick to believe this. But if you don't, then you wouldn't. But, yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's pretty creepy.
Sorry we have not been doing
creepypastas.
Yeah, more creepypastas other than this, but we have done, well, Tyler's done a few theories, and we're working on doing some more comedy sketches.
Hopefully we will have one uploaded to you
soon.
Today or tomorrow, or, yeah, not today, actually, because it's like midnight almost. Tomorrow or Sunday, hopefully. And, you should be expecting more theory videos, maybe Tuesday, because I actually switched schools, so yes. I don't have to go to school for 2 days. So yeah, I miss all my friends.
So thank you for watching. Subscribe to the Andy.
Just cut me off, you freaking jerk. Like. Whatever, sorry, it's totally fine. Yeah, so hopefully you liked the video, and we will see you guys later. Deuces.
Peace.